Okay, so right. So last time I confused myself about this example. So let me remind you, and we'll go through this carefully. So it's sort of good that I got confused because this brings out an important point. So we were remember what we were doing. We were talking about testing variance. Variance of a normal distribution. So, so we wanted to test if the variance is equal to some given value, sigma naught squared, versus its negation. And for the two-sided test, we accept the null hypothesis if this quantity n minus 1 s squared by sigma naught squared, which is supposed to be chi-square distributed, with n minus 1 degrees of freedom lies between these values. Right? So at significance level alpha, this will have probability 1 minus alpha. That's what we want. Now in doing the one-sided test, I sort of confused myself. So let's so you can ignore what I said over there. So let's talk about this example afresh. Okay, so what is the example? So you have a cutting machine and it cuts this material, and the standard deviation um, should be small. So in this case, the cutting machine will be effective if the standard deviation is less than 0.15 centimeters. And in 20 samples, they get a variance of 0.025 centimeters squared, and can be concluded as effective. So sigma naught for us is 0.15, and we have this one-sided test, which is that H naught is, the null hypothesis says that sigma squared is less than or equal to 0.025, and H1 is its negation. So now let us look at this problem again. So continue the example. Okay, so so I recall that the upper and lower confidence interval estimates estimates for sigma squared are the following: n minus 1 s squared by chi squared alpha n minus 1 to infinity, and 0 to n minus 1 s squared divided by chi squared at 1 minus alpha n minus 1 respectively. Okay, so the upper interval is something like this. Um, sorry. So it's something like this, and the lower interval is something like this. Yeah. Okay. So this is how. So we want to compute this value, right? So again, I go back to the example. So alpha we will take to be 5% as usual. So as usual, alpha is 5%. So let us compute these two values. So n minus 1. So what I was doing last time is to compare with the lower estimate. So let us look at n minus 1 s squared divided by chi squared 1 minus alpha n minus 1. So n is for us 20, right? So there are 20 samples. So 19. S squared we know is 0.025 divided by this chi squared value. So I have it on my Mathematica file. So chi squared alpha is 5%. So 1 minus alpha is 0.95 and n minus 1 is 19. So I calculate this value and I get 30.145. So let's 30.14, and this is approximately 0.0156. And so let's look at that. So this value over here is 0.0156, and our sigma naught squared. So sigma naught squared is 0.15 squared, which also I have calculated here, which is 0.0225. And so if you look, this is 0.0225. This is greater than 0.016, right? So what I was doing the last time was to say that, oh, well, this is outside it, so we should reject it. But that is, I mean, this is the flaw in the argument is that we are testing the null hypothesis that sigma squared is less than or equal to the sigma naught squared, right? So this is sigma naught squared. I'm testing that sigma squared is less than or equal to sigma naught squared, but this is problematic because, you know, this whole interval is less than this. So no matter where this sigma naught square fell, if it fell here or here, it does not, it does not, it neither confirms nor denies the null hypothesis, right? So because all this entire interval is less, so how can we use this to test the null hypothesis? So this was the mistake. So although this is less 0.0225, we cannot use this to test H naught because it doesn't give us any information. On the other hand, now let us look at the upper estimate. So this is what we should be doing. So I should look at chi squared at alpha n minus 1. So n minus 1 s squared by chi squared alpha n minus 1. This is 19 times 0.025, again same, divided by chi squared. So now let me look at chi squared at alpha. Okay, so that's 0.05. So yeah, this I should have checked. So this is 10.117 and this is about 0.047. So if I go back here, my value here is 0.047. And comparatively, my sigma naught is over here. Okay, which is outside this interval. So this is the alternate hypothesis, remember? So H1 was saying that sigma squared is greater than 0.0225, and so this says that which is greater than 0.0225. So therefore we cannot accept the alternative hypothesis, right? So thus this lies outside the range of H1, and Therefore, we must accept So in other words, what's the moral of the story? While testing a null hypothesis of the one-sided form, we should not look at the confidence interval for example, when we are testing that sigma squared is less than some value, what we should not be doing is to look at the lower confidence interval. We should look at the upper confidence interval and vice versa. Okay, this is the point. Okay, so it's sort of good that I did this example because this clarifies this important part. Are there any questions about this? Okay. Right. So hopefully this is clear, so I'm going to move on. So just like we compared means of two normal distributions, we can also compare variances of two populations. Sorry, we can also compare variances of two normals using something called the F test, but I will skip that. So this is for those of you who are interested, you can read about this. It involves something called the F distribution, and this is in section 8.5.1 of the book, but we will skip this. Somehow testing means is more natural and is the first thing one can do. This is slightly more advanced, so we will not get into it. Okay, good. So the last thing I want to do
in previous example, which is also given in the book. In the book, they have considered the p-value to be the probability that chi-square is greater than n minus 1 s squared upon sigma squared. So which means that what we were doing earlier was correct.
No. So right. So I think it's a good exercise for all of you to come. Yeah, I was going to say that. So thanks, Tom, for bringing this up. The book does this in terms of the p-value, and they sort of just do it without any explanation. So I suggest all of you compare and contrast the way we have done this versus the way book has done this, and convince yourself that it is correct. What we have done is correct. Okay. So they have not told you how the p-value is computed. It just says, okay, this is the p-value, this is greater than that. But how did they come up with this p-value? So go through that and understand it, and of course we can discuss this again if needed. Okay. Right. So for the last bit in this chapter, we will, as I said several times, we will follow the sequence of confidence interval estimates in chapter 7. So we are now looking at Bernoulli population. So okay, again using previous terminology, assume that there is a large population and a fraction p of them are so-called successes in quotes. Okay. and we take a sample of them. So remember we discussed this. I mean, if the population is finite, then you get a hypergeometric distribution. But for many practical purposes, it suffices to assume that the population is large enough that you can approximate the hypergeometric distribution by the binomial distribution. So we take a sample of size small n, and we test and test. So, so what is our test? So you want to find this. There's only one quantity here that one needs to figure out, and that's this p. In this case, as you will see soon enough, it makes more sense to look at the one-sided test first. So we'll take the compound hypothesis that p is. So we want to test the one-sided compound hypothesis. H naught, which says that p is, let's say, less than or equal to p naught, versus H1, which says that p is greater than p naught. Okay, so why we want to do this will come up very soon. So so suppose the true value of this fraction is p. So, and if x is the number of successes, this is the number of successes, then x is clearly a binomial NP random. And when do you want to reject this? So, can someone answer? I mean, p is less than or equal to p naught is our null hypothesis. So, under the null hypothesis, what should x be small or large? What do you think? If p is small,
so then x should be small. If x is very large, then we should reject.
Correct, exactly. So clearly, we must reject H naught if x is large. But what does that mean? So let's try to quantify that. Recall that the probability of x being greater than or equal to some value k is the sum I equals k to n, and choose I, p to the I, 1 minus p to the n minus I. This is the summing the PMF of the binomial distribution. Now, now we want to check for if p is less than or equal to p naught, right? So we have to vary this function. So let me call this f of p. So k is fixed, okay? So I leave it as an exercise for you to show that f of p is an increasing function of p. K is fixed, okay? So, I mean, this is natural, right? So if p is larger, then the probability of x being greater than or equal to p should increase, right? K, x greater than or equal to k, sorry, should increase, right? So this should make sense, but this is, you can prove this using calculus, take the derivative and show that it's positive, okay? So show that, so to prove that f prime of p is positive, okay? All right. So therefore, assuming H naught, our null hypothesis, because this is an increasing function, the probability of x less than or equal to k should be less than or equal to the same sum I mean I can write f of p naught, but let me write it explicitly, because p naught to the I 1 minus p to the n, p naught to the n minus I, right? Because this is an increasing function, so it attains its maximum at p naught, assuming h naught. Right? So let k star be the minimum value of k such that this sum I equal to k to n, n choose I, p naught to the I 1 minus p naught to the n minus I is less than or equal to this given level alpha. So in other words, we are looking at the, you have your binomial EMF, whatever, it looks like that, and we have this area equal to alpha here, and k star is the smallest such value such that area is less than or equal to. I mean, this is a discrete distribution, so you cannot you cannot expect the area to be exactly alpha, but this is the minimum value. If you go smaller than this, then the area will exceed alpha, right? So the significance level alpha test is then tells you what the critical value of x is. So accept h naught if x is less than k star, and reject h naught if x is greater than k. Right? So at this value or any higher value, the area will be less than or equal to. Okay. So here you have to be careful about the where the equality is big. So, but here the computation is easy to do in terms of the p-value. So in terms of the so if x is equal to some small value x, then the p-value is the probability that your binomial n p naught random variable is greater than or equal to x. Because if you get, I mean, we can just compare this quantity directly with alpha instead of, computing k star, because that's a pain. So this is simply the sum I equal to x to n. You just do this sum and choose I, p naught to the I, 1 minus p naught to the n minus I. And you, if this is greater than alpha, then you accept, and less than alpha. Right? So this is a much easier quantity to compute, right? So you just take this sum and you just compare it. So let's do an example. So chip manufacturer.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, when x is equal to k star, why would we reject the hypothesis?
Because the area is still less than or equal to alpha. Remember, what is the type 1 error? The type 1 error is the probability that you know, you use you reject H naught when it is true, right? So in that case, we want this area to be, I mean, this error to be less than or equal to alpha. That's what the significance level alpha test is, right? So at K star, it's still less than or equal to alpha. Okay, is that clear, Sohan?
Yes, sir, got it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's come back to this example. So chip manufacturer claims that at most 2% of chips are defective. I don't mean I mean computer chips, okay, not your potato chips are defective. And so an electronics company buys a large sample and decides to test 300 of them. Okay, if 10 are found defective, should they accept the claim? Okay, so 10 out of 300 are found, which is about 3%, 3.33%. But this guys are claiming that only 2% are defective. I mean, this seems large, but maybe this is within the bounds of error. So let's check. So let alpha equal to 5%. It's not mentioned, so we should take that. Okay. What is our P naught here? So P naught here is, I mean, the claim is that at most 2% are defective. So P naught is 2%, which is 0.02. Right? So they're claiming that P is less than or equal to 0.02. Okay. So what, I mean, so then we have everything, and we have X is 10 and N is 300. Right? So let's check the p-value. So let's compute the p-value. This is the probability under the null hypothesis that X is greater than or equal to 10. Right? So this is the binomial random variable is, or maybe let me write it in terms of this notation. So probability that a binomial 300.02 random variable is greater than or equal to 10. Right? That's exactly what this is saying. But I mean, this is a very large sum. You're going from 10 to 300, right? So it's maybe easier to do it the other way. So this is 1 minus the opposite probability, which is I goes from 0 to 9. This is greater than or equal to 300 choose I. P, which is 0.02 to the I, and 1 minus P, which is 0.98 to the N, which is 300 minus. Okay, so again, I've done this in Mathematica. I cannot be bothered to do this sum. So I take binomial 300 choose I, 0.02 to the I, 0.98 to the 300 minus I goes from 0 to 9, and I subtract 1 from that, and so I get 0.081, which is greater than 0.05. So it is in fact within the error bound, so we accept. Okay. Any questions? Okay, I mean, one question you could ask at this point is, I mean, didn't we show that a binomial NP random variable for n large and p fixed, doesn't it, isn't it well approximated by the normal? I mean, certainly 300 seems like a reasonably large number and we should be able to approximate by the normal. So let us do that. So if n is large, we can approximate using the normal distribution. So recall that if x is a binomial NP random variable, then expectation is n times p and variance is np 1 minus p. Right? We have shown this many times. So x minus np divided by square root of np 1 minus p is approximately a normal distribution, so standard normal. So now, using the same kind of things we have done before, for the same one-sided test, level alpha test, we accept H naught if this quantity is not too large. And what's not too large mean? So not this quantity, but with p replaced by p naught. X minus np naught divided by square root np naught 1 minus p naught is less than or equal to z alpha. And reject H naught if this quantity is greater than z. Right? So that's the same kind of thing we have seen many times. Right. So equivalently, let's calculate the p-value, which is the probability that a normal is greater than or equal to this value. Okay. So back to this same example. The p-value is equal to the probability, as I said, that a binomial 300.02 and variable is greater than or equal to 10. So here n is 300, p naught is 0.02. So n p naught is 300 times 0.02, which is 6, and square root of n p naught 1 minus p naught. I've done this again in Mathematica. Square root of n p naught 1 minus p naught is 2.42 or 2. So 2.42. So the p-value again is the probability that that this x, I mean, remember we have to do the continuum approximation. So instead of saying greater than or equal to 10, we say greater than or equal to 9.5, going about the half, and which is equal to the probability that x minus 6 by 2.42 is greater than or equal to 9.5 minus 6 by 2.42, which is the probability that a standard normal is greater than or equal to this quantity, and that I have computed here again, which is 1.44. And this is about 0.07, which is again greater than 0.05. So again we accept. Okay, so I mean, so in this case, using the oh, actually, I could have calculated it in the CDF at this point. Let's check that. Oh. Why is it not doing it? Oh, sorry, this doesn't make sense. Sorry, I should do the CDF. Okay, so I have to do 1 minus the CDF, and that's 0.074. Right, so that's this one. Right. Any questions about this? Okay, so you can see that in this one-sided test things are simple, but now let's look at the two-sided test. So here it is H naught, which says that P is equal to some particular value P naught versus the alternative hypothesis that P is not equal to P naught. Okay, then I mean here the complication arises because we should reject H naught if X, the number of successes, is either too large or too small, right? I mean, because I mean, if you have again the normal so if here is P naught, I mean, you want to accept so you want okay, that's not a good drawing. I mean, okay, I want it to be asymmetric. Okay. So this total area so must be alpha. So total area of shaded region. Right? So you, I mean, if X is too far away on both sides, we are not happy. So by an entirely similar analysis, so I mean, okay, maybe I should put P naught in the center because we are always going to be doing our calculations under the assumption of the null hypothesis. So P naught, sorry, what am I saying? So I mean this is the CDF. So X. So this is the mean value, which is NP. So at around NP naught, which is the center, this will be symmetric about that. So by a similar analysis, we should reject. Now we should use alpha by 2. So this has area alpha by 2. This has area alpha by 2. We should reject H naught if the probability of this binomial n P naught and a variable greater than or equal to the observed value x is less than or equal to alpha by 2, or less than or equal to x is less than or equal to. So if it's either too small or too large. So in terms of the p-value, So again, equivalently, the p-value is 2 times the minimum of these two probabilities. Probability that binomial np naught is greater than or equal to x, and the probability that binomial np naught is less than x. Okay. So I mean, it's the same kind of calculation as before. I mean, you just need to compute these two values and take the minimum. I mean, the reason for the 2 is because alpha should be greater than or equal to twice this value or twice this value. So you compute these two values, and if p is large, then you accept, otherwise. Okay. All right. So the last thing I want to do in this chapter is just like we compared normals, means of two normal population, we want to compare two Bernoulli populations and compare whether sorry, no pun intended, the p values of the p's are I mean the p's that you get in both these Bernoulli populations are equal or not. And this has practical applications because you want to test if two different methods for computing something or measuring something or improving something are the same or not. So this is certainly a practical problem, and we'll do an example. Okay, so as I said, we want to compare, for example, two methods of production. So let x1 be the number of successes. Again, I'm using the same terminology. Successes doesn't mean something positive necessarily. In the first sample of size n1 with success probability p1, and x2 be the number of successes in second sample of size n2 with success probability p2. Okay, so x1 is a binomial n1 p1 random variable, x2 is a binomial n2 p2 random variable, and x1 and x2 are assumed to be independent. Without that, we are stuck. And this is also a natural assumption. I mean, why should the two different methods, why should the two things have any relationship to each other? So we want to test H naught, which says that P1 equal to P2 versus its negation. Okay. I mean, again, I mean, it's sort of clear what to do. So, I mean, if both of these had the same, I mean, if P1 were equal to P2, then the number of proportion of successes would be close to each other, right? So if H naught were true, proportion of successes should be similar, i.e. x1 by n1 should be approximately x2 by n2, right? I mean, this seems natural. So how do we quantify this? So suppose the total number of successes, which is x1 plus x2, is equal to k. Okay. So if h naught were true, then what can you say about the distribution of k? The distribution of x1 plus x2? Well, it's as if you had a combined sample. I mean, they are all independent of each other anyway, right? I mean, I said x1 and x2 are independent. So then x1 plus x2 is like a binomial distribution with n1 plus n2 samples and p1 or p2 as the success probability, right? I mean, this is natural. So then the conditional probability. So suppose you saw a total of k successes from both the populations. So the conditional probability of observing I successes in the first population, in the first sample, sorry, is what? So this is the probability under h naught of x1 equal to I given x1 plus x2 equal to k. What is this? Well, you should choose I among the n1 and k minus I among the n2, and divide by having a total of k, probability of having k for 0 less than equal to I less than equal to k. Does this distribution, does this PMF look familiar?
Sir, but x1 plus x2 is given to be k, then why should we take the probability of having x1 plus x2 equal to k in the denominator?
Huh? What do you mean? I mean,
Sir,
what is, this is how you calculate conditional probabilities, right? So probability of A intersection B is probability of AB divided by probability of B. Probability of B is this.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. Good.
So what is this distribution? Does it look familiar? Have we seen
It's hypergeometric with n1 plus n2 and I.
Well, there are three parameters, which is a hypergeometric. N1 plus N2 is the total number of samples. Successes is total number of successes is N1 and one side is N1 and K is the number of successes. Okay. Okay. So therefore, when should we accept, when should we reject this quantity in terms of x1? So if x1 is either very large or very small, we should reject, right? So we should reject h naught if x1 is very large or very small. So using this distribution, we want just like we did for this other two-sided test, we want this probability equal to alpha by 2 and this to be alpha by 2. So that's what we're going to do. So the precise significance level alpha test is to reject H naught if this probability that x is less than or equal to x1 is less than or equal to alpha by 2 or greater than or equal to x1 is also less than or equal to alpha by 2 and accept H naught otherwise. Okay. So, I mean, this is the same kind of thing we have been doing before, where x is a hypergeometric random variable with parameters n1 plus n2, n1 and k, with PMF as above. Okay, this P. Okay. So equivalently, in terms of the P value, the P value is equal to twice the minimum of these two probabilities. Probability x less than or equal to x1, probability x greater than or equal to x1. I mean, one of them will clearly be off. So, right? I mean, again, you see the factor of 2 because of this thing. And just to give you some name, this is known as the Fisher-Irwin test. Okay, so I've not been using names for various tests because the book doesn't do so. I mean, for example, the test for normal using Z alpha all the time is called the Z test. That's a common term used. So, but I've not been using it so far. Okay, so let's do one example. So two methods of producing transistors are known. Are used. Let's say in the first sample, 20 out of 100 were defective. In the second, 12 out of 100 were defective. So, and let alpha, so what can you say at the 10% level of significance? So let's look at the parameters. So N1 and N2 are 100. K is 20 plus 12, which is 32. Okay. And so here, well, you see that there is a lack of symmetry here. I mean, I took probability x less than or equal to x1 rather than x2. I mean, there was, and here when we did this conditional probability, I mean, there was no reason to choose x1 over x2. So in practice, you should choose x1 to be the more extreme value, further away from the mean. I mean, since these are small numbers, to get a better answer, you should choose x1 to be the more extreme value, which in this case is 12, which is further away from the mean. Okay. So in this case, the smaller value. So yeah, so here I should have said, so X is a hypergeometric variable with parameters 200, 100 and 32. And so the p-value here is twice the minimum. Okay, so again I've done this in Mathematica. So I've looked at the hypergeometric distribution, and with these parameters, I mean Mathematica has the Ulta convention, and I've taken 12 to be the value, and I get 0.088. So that's one of the values. So that is x less than or equal to 12, and x greater than or equal to 12 is just 1 minus that, so that's 0.9. So I mean clearly we should not consider this. So I just take twice this value, so I get 0.176, which is greater than 0.1. So we accept, because we are talking at 10%. Also you will accept it at 5%. Right? Okay. So now we are there any questions? Okay. So if not, we are done with this chapter. Let me just make one remark about something that we have not really talked much about. There is this whole area of something called robust statistics, which says, which says that we should kind of use tests which even work approximately when the underlying assumptions fail. So, for example, in many cases we have used the normal test, and that's an example of a robust test, because even if your underlying data is not exactly normal, so that fails the assumptions, it goes through if you have the data will be approximately close to normal because of the central limit there. So this is so almost all the tests that we have used, like the t-test, the z-test, the normal test that I just mentioned, these are all robust tests. But many tests are not, and that's a separate area of research. Okay, so right, so that's just one thing I wanted to mention in this. Okay, so from next week we'll talk about regression. Okay, so let me stop.